This person standing out here in the rain is frightened by what they see ahead. That was me back in the 90s. I think I mentioned in one of my other videos about debt collectors. And I think I was renting an apartment, and for whatever reason it was denied. And when I got a copy of the credit report, it was 12, 14 pages long. Places I had never lived, debts I knew nothing about. And during this time, you didn't have the rules and regulations that govern debt collectors, the credit reporting bureaus that we have today. And I literally was traumatized by the way I was treated as I tried to get resolution for the debts, or to prove that these things did not belong to me. And during the course of my research, and I mentioned this also in another video, I found the debt validation letter on a website. And that was the greatest gift I had ever received. It was like the clouds cleared, the storm stopped to a point. The lightning was still flashing, and I was still standing out there, but at least I had something now that could help me. And I was beyond words. And as I began to understand the Fair Credit Act, and I began to understand the power of this one letter, a debt validation letter, and it is found, the one I'm using in this video, you will see is found on Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's website, and I've got the URL and everything. It is an actual sample letter, and really I actually was, help me please, what are my rights? And that's where I was at that point in time. So I can only imagine, if you're watching this video and you're trying to understand what to do, you may feel like I did then. And I hope that this will help you. I'm going to make this one letter. I have other letters, but I'm just putting this one in a video by itself, because this is your pivotal letter that will truly help you with this. This video is continuing with what to do if contacted by a debt collector. This is information from the CFPB, and you can readily go online. The web link is here, so you can go and print these out or download them to your computer. So we're going to go through these letters, these 5 letters that they have on their website. There are other things you can do. These are just suggestions, and just to kind of give you something to work with if you are contacted by a debt collector. And what you have to understand, I want to say this in the beginning, if the debt is validated, these techniques will not undo a legitimate debt. They will not wipe out a debt that you owe. It would only help you with people who are collecting the debt that are unscrupulous, or maybe a phantom debt collector that's contacting you and the debt is really not yours. But if you have a legitimate debt, trying to use these techniques to force the creditor or the debt collector to wipe out the debt or excuse the debt because they can't find it or whatever, that's not always true. So these techniques would not get rid of a legitimate debt. The CFPB says, has this first little portion when you go to this section of I've been contacted by a debt collector, and the answer is, depending on the situation, there are different ways to respond appropriately to debt collectors. We have sample letters you can use if you're experiencing common problems. Okay, and it gives you a list here. It says, I do not owe this debt. I need more information about this debt. That's basically your debt validation. I want the debt collector to stop contacting me. I want the debt collector to only contact me through my lawyer. I want to specify how the debt collector can contact me. If you use any of these letters, it is important to do so as soon as possible after your first contact, to keep copies of any letters you send. In certain situations, you only have 30 days after you're contacted to ask for certain information. I want to read that again. You only have 30 days after you're contacted to ask for certain information. If you don't, the debt will automatically be applied to you. So timeliness and follow through is very, very important. But if more than 30 days pass, it's still a good idea to ask for what you need. So the letters here, warning, these are not legal advice. I'm going to read that again. These are just letters the CFPB is giving you. They're not giving you legal advice. So the best thing to do is check with an attorney if you're in doubt, if your situation is complicated. Everybody's need is a little complicated. If you're being sued or think you're being sued, you should contact an attorney, a lawyer, right away. These letters should not be used with a credit card company or your original lender. I'm going to read that again. These letters should not be used with a credit card company or original lenders. These letters are written to be used with the debt collector, debt collection companies, or anybody who has purchased your debt from an original lender in order to collect it from you. So basically, these letters are only to be used in the case of you've defaulted on the debt. Say, for instance, you were out of work and you couldn't pay your bills and you were trying to keep them paid, but eventually the original lender got tired of waiting and sold your debt to a collector. So that's when you use the letters that's in this video. As I said earlier, this particular video is solely for the debt validation letter. The other letters mentioned in the previous slide will be discussed in another video that will be on my channel in a playlist called Letters, basically. But you have to realize that this is the most important letter, because as the CFPB states here, it says, tell me more about this debt. And that's basically what this letter does. And so we're going to kind of take our time and go through this because this is so important. This will protect you from unscrupulous debt collectors that try to get you to pay a debt that's not yours, even phantom debt collectors. It will give you the information you need to find out, what is the age of the debt? Is it 7 years old, which should have already dropped off your credit report? Is it someone else's debt? As I said earlier, that's the key. It could be a person with a similar name. And all of these things are very relevant. But if you don't ask for that verification, you won't know. And I don't care what you tell these folks. If you don't use the law according to the Fair Credit Act, you won't get a correct response, and you won't get these people to leave you alone. So, like I said in my original opening statement, this is what helped me. Basically, it saved me, because some of the debts they had on there on my credit report, I had never lived there, and I could not get the credit bureaus to correct it back then. They would not take it off. So it's crazy without this letter. That's all I can say. This is the most important letter you will ever write. So the statement they have here is on the background. That's where we're going to start. It says, send this letter as soon as you can, if at all possible, within 30 days of when the debt collector contacted you the first time about the debt. I don't care if it's a call, a text, or whatever. You want their information, the person's name, their address, whatever little information they have, and you want to put that in this letter, and you want to send it either priority mail with delivery confirmation or certified mail, and you want to keep that receipt, because this is time sensitive. This is important under the Federal Fair Credit Collection Practice Act. Now, this particular law governs how debt collectors interact with you. What are the laws that constrain them? What rights do you have that the federal government has given to them to protect you? Your legal rights to obtain verification information from a debt collector or greater during the 30-day period, because that's what the law stipulates that you are entitled to. When a debt collector is asking you to pay money, you're entitled to ask for details. The sample letter below will help you to get details on the following: why a debt collector thinks you owe this debt, the amount of the debt, and how old it is. That's very critical. Details about the debt collector's authority to collect the money. A debt collector who calls you and says, I'm an attorney, or some other type of government office, I don't care what his title is, if he's collecting a debt under the law, he is a debt collector and he has to abide by the same law. A debt collector may not have a legal obligation to provide some or all of the information you seek, even if you request it within 30-day period. If the collector doesn't give you what you request, that doesn't necessarily mean the debt collector has broken any laws or has given you a legal right to collect from him, because you can actually sue them if they break this law. So we're going to go through this portion, which just tells you what your rights are and things that should be in the letter from the CFPB. After you send the letter, the debt collector makes vague statements about what will happen if you do not pay. Okay? Read their response to your letter carefully. If they tell you they intend to sue you, you should take that seriously. Federal law prohibits a debt collector from threatening to take any action they can't take or that they don't intend to take. So basically, they cannot claim they're going to do legal litigation against you. If they're not going to do it, they can't use it as a threat. So, and then it goes on to say to check with your state legal services to try to find a lawyer, and check with your statute of limitations as far as time constraint. That's why it's so important to understand the date on the debt. The date you went delinquent on the debt, is the date the statute of limitation clicks in, the clock starts ticking. After a certain period of time, depending on what the type of debt is, they cannot take you to court for that. And if they do, your defense would be the actual statute of limitation, that it has exceeded that. So you should contact your state attorney general's office, Consumer Affairs Division, and find out what your state's rules and regulations are for that. And a lot of times they can help you. But if they threaten to sue you, take it seriously. And if you get paperwork that you're supposed to go to court, go to court. Even if you haven't been able to afford an attorney, you need to go to court, because you will lose by default. Now, this is the first part of the letter from CFPB. They don't really write it out for you. They just tell you the things that need to be in the letter. You know, you put your return address, the creditor information that you have, and then you list the first paragraph, why they contact you, put the date and things in. And then the next part basically is you asking them for information that gives the validity that you actually own this debt. And so you want the name and address of the creditor. The next bullet item is basically saying if this debt started with a different creditor, you want to find the original debt, not the numerous little creditors it's been through. You want them to go all the way back to the original debt. And then you want, the next bullet item mentions documentation. You want something with your signature on it, some kind of credit statement or some type of contract you sign, something proving that the debt is actually yours. And the second one basically is still asking for more documentation. The next part is the amount and age of the debt, which is very important. So you want a copy or something of the last billing statement, or when the last letter of delinquency was sent to you. You want that included in there. And then the state, it should state the amount of the debt when you obtained it, not with all the fees and whatever, but when you obtained the actual debt. And then the next bullet item talks about additional interest, fees, charges, and such in the last billing statement from the original creditor. That's very important. And to provide an itemization showing the dates and amount of each added amount. So whatever they have on there, they've got to be able to justify by law those additional fees and charges, because some of those things are prohibited. And then the last bullet item on this page, it says if there have been any payments or other reductions since the last billing statement from the original creditor. So you want all of those payments and things you did to the original creditor. That's very important. If there's have been any other changes or adjustments since that statement. So you want all of the financial transactions, any payments or anything that's related to that debt from the original creditor, because it's very important, as this last paragraph says. In addition, explain how the other charges or adjustments are expressly authorized by the agreement creating the debt or permitted by law. So you want all of that information. Tell me when the creditor claims this debt became due, when it became delinquent. Identify the date of the last payment made on this account. Have you made a determination that this debt is within the statute of limitations applicable to it? Every state has a statute of limitation when you cannot be sued for a certain debt. So that's why the age of the debt is so important, because by law of that state, depending on the type of debt and how old the debt is, you cannot be sued in court for that debt. But if you initiate some kind of payment through a creditor or something like that, that restarts the clock. So contact your Attorney General's Consumer Protection Agency once you get that letter from the notification from that creditor, and you get that information back. That will help you. But don't agree to anything until you get their response. And the next one says details about your authority. So this particular section, you want verification that they have the right to be a debt collector in your state. Some states require debt collectors to be licensed, and you want to get all of that information. And if they're from an outside state, you still want that same information. And then this last paragraph, it says, I have asked for this information because I have some questions. I need to hear from you to make an informed decision about your claim that I owe this money. I'm open to communication with you for this purpose in order to make sure that I'm not put at any disadvantage. In the meantime, please treat this debt as being in dispute. That means they cannot continue to pursue collection practices once this debt is in dispute. They can't put it on your credit report. They can't do anything. Now, the last paragraph, it offers, it says, in addition to providing the information requested above, please let me know whether you are prepared to accept less than the balance claimed is owed. You know, that's something you can ask as well. Some debt collectors will be willing to negotiate, and you don't have to pay it all if the debt turns out to be yours. And if you get this information and you know the debt is yours, that might be something good. But wait until they respond, and please contact your Attorney General's office about the statute of limitation. Now, this next part is just letters I found on the internet. I don't know anything about these different companies, and I'll be saying that kind of a lot the next portion of this video. But I found this statement on this particular website in badcredit.org, and it was an article written by Ms. Meyer, and it was item 6 in her article about debt validation letters. And this is like my warning, beep 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 type thing. Although there's little harm in disputing debts that are legitimately not your own, some consumers will dispute real debts in an effort to avoid the need to repay them. While this method can be effective when debts have changed hands many times and the original paperwork is hard to find, it can have unfortunate side effects of a vigorous hail of collection notices and phone calls. For example, if you're in the process of trying to repair your credit, you may consider sending a debt validation letter for an old debt that has been in collection for some time. While it may turn out that the debt collector can't verify the debt, getting you off the hook, it may also turn out that they can verify it. So you got to think wisely when you're doing this. Should the debt collector be able to properly verify the debt, you're likely not only receive a letter with that verification, but it will also probably include a request that you pay the debt immediately. You're not likely to find yourself in a prime spot at the top of the debt collector's list. While you can still send a written request that the debt collector only contact you by mail at a specific address, your voicemail will likely fill up quickly before that letter arrives, because he knows the law as well. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing when you use a debt validation letter. It will not get rid of a legitimate debt that's on your credit report. The best thing to try to do is to check the statute of limitation. If the debt is over 7 years old, go back and have the debt contact the credit reporting agent, get the debt removed because it exceeds the 7 years, or you have to make sure you keep your records and you know that debt has exceeded the statute of limitation. So it's up to you. But if you're using these techniques to try to clean your credit up of things you put on there, that's not wise. I had a situation with a debt collector because I had I got laid off, and then I was unemployed for a while, and I had a debt I was trying to straighten out. I got all the others paid that I had. I paid them all. I contacted them. I paid those people, and I had this one debt that I was having a hard time with, and they had added all of these enormous amount of fees this debt collector had, and so I contacted the original owner of the debt, even though they had sold the debt, and I worked out a payment. So he accepted my offer, and I didn't pay anything until I got the confirmation that the letter would come and that they would remove that item from my credit report. So I had them put that in writing, send it to me, and then at that point I sent them their money, and then I confirmed that the item had been removed from my credit report because I had a signed letter from them stating that at the next cycle when they updated their report to the credit bureaus, that item would be removed. So you have to know what you're doing, and you cannot just use this, as I said earlier, to try to get rid of negative items on your credit report that you have put there legitimately. Now, these next few slides are actually debt validation letters that I found on the internet, and they're from companies, different companies, and I have their URL at the top. I have no knowledge of whether these companies are good or bad. That's something you have to do for yourself. But sometimes writing letters can be hard. If you need help because you don't feel you can follow through, keep all the paperwork together, and do all the things you need to do, some of these companies do offer that service for a fee. But you should check the company, go on to the company's website, get their information, then contact like the Better Business Bureau. If it's in a different state than you want to contact the state attorney general's consumer protection. You want to make sure that these people are actually legitimate, and then you can go to the Federal Trade Commission's website. There's a link that will show you bad debt collectors. That's on my YouTube channel as well. I have that on there about bad debt collectors that are no longer allowed to collect debt in any form. Here's another company's letter, sample letter, and you can see their URLs at the top. As I said before, I don't know anything about this company, whether they're legitimate or not. You should do your due diligence if you need their help. And some companies do offer assistance on compiling these letters and helping with the follow through. So you can see in the letter, it asks some of the similar things that the CFPB letter required you to have. So they do have those components in the letter. This is their last portion of that letter. If your company is able to provide me with above requested information, I will need 30 days time to initiate my own investigation of the debt. During these 30 days, collection activity must cease, and that's what you're after, to get a way to verify this debt is so very important. This correspondence is an attempt to validate and correct your documentation and records. Any information collected will be used solely for that purpose. So this is one approach. This is one letter. This is another company where they did it online. Like I said before, I don't know anything about the company. I have not verified their validity or their standing in their business. But this is another approach to getting the information the CFPB template suggests that they have. And you can see they have included various information about the 3 credit bureaus, the violation of the various credit reporting acts, and different things they've added in this particular letter. And this is another one you complete online. This is the portion where they're asking about dates and accounts. This is the second page of that letter. In the last paragraph, it says it would be advisable that you assure that your records are in order before I'm forced to take legal action. This is one of them heavy letters. So there are some companies out there that really pursue your rights very vigorously. This is the last sample letter I have in this video, and as you can see, here's the company up at the top. And like I said before, I don't know anything about this company. I've never used them, so you have to do your due diligence to verify if you're interested in having someone assist you with this. You need to check the company out thoroughly and make sure that they actually have the right to do business and to assist you with this, because there are so many fraudulent companies out there looking for a way to take advantage of people who are trying to just get issues straightened out according to, debt problems. So here's another one, and he quotes the law, and he gives you the sections and different things in his letter. So this is another type of letter you can submit. And here's his second page, and it shows you he has all those components that the CFPB template requests that you put in your letter. So this is another approach to dealing with a creditor. It's a tiring experience, even with the information and the letters. Sometimes you will be so tired trying to resolve this thing. You will be just so exhausted and tired of writing letters, trying to do all the things the letters require, and then the responses from the creditors, they're trying to collect their money, and so they're acting like they don't believe you and you don't have any rights. That's what I went through. And the debt validation letter is worth the battle, because at least you can get things cleared up, especially if it's some type of phantom debt or some other debt that they have that's really not yours, like identity theft or somebody using your name. This is something that can be exhausting. I know I felt like a lot of times I was just standing on the side of the road by myself, didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to make it. I felt like sometimes I was under my own little cloud. It was storming out there, but it looked like I had my own little thunderstorm going on, and I was just running out of gas all along the way. But you have to complete this to clear your name. And if you don't, it will just ruin your credit. You do have to fight this battle. Like I said, it's the fight of your life, especially if you're trying to straighten things out. So be encouraged. You have the sample debt letters I included in the video, and the companies if you need help. But remember, like I said, in each letter section, I do not know these people. I have never affiliated with them. I'm providing no validation for them in any way. So you have to do your due diligence to check out all those companies that I have in the video who had sample debt validation letters that I put in this video. So contact your Attorney General's office in your state, the Consumer Affairs, the Better Business Bureau. Check the FTC's website for banned debt collectors. So do your due diligence, because it can be frustrating, especially if you have a lot, or just a debt collector that's just giving you such a hard time. So be encouraged. The debt validation will help you get on your way, and the other letters that I have put in the other videos will be of assistance, and I will include that URL in the comment section of this video. Thank you so much for visiting my channel, and have a great day.